Hi everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the new Godox V480 for Olympus OM system and Panasonic cameras. And I did a review for this flash for the Sony camera system. However, I wanted to do one specifically for the OM system and Olympus users because our cameras have computational features in it like focus bracketing, in-camera stacking, high-res shot mode, and the ability to use flash with silent shutter, electronic shutter, features that are not really available in other camera systems. And I wanted to see how this flash performs using those features. So when Godox announced this a few months ago, I was really excited to get this for my Olympus and OM system cameras because I wanted something smaller and lighter and easy to carry than, say, my Godox V1s and my TT685s, and yet more powerful than the TT350s that I have. And this fits the bill perfectly. And this flash has everything you could ever want. I mean, full TTL compatibility, high-speed sync, multi-strobe mode, also has the Godox X wireless system built in, so you can use it off camera wirelessly or use it on camera as a transmitter to control multiple other flashes in multiple groups. So I want to give you some perspective to the different sizes between these flashes. I have the TT350 here, this is the V480, and of course this is the V1 Pro. And as you can see, this seems to fit very nicely in the middle, but it's actually much closer to the TT350 than it is to the Godox V1. As you can see, this one was really only about a centimeter taller and maybe a centimeter longer, give or take. And the Godox V1 is substantially larger than the TT350, and also, for that matter, larger than the V480 by a couple centimeters here, and also in terms of length. I have been recommending this TT350 for a long time as the best first flash for beginners, but that crown has now easily been taken over by the V480 for multiple reasons. I mean, let's face it, the TT350 is just getting a little long in the tooth. It has the older LCD display here, which is kind of small and hard to read versus, say, the new OLED full color display with touchscreen. Also, this is much brighter by at least a stop difference in terms of brightness, and that makes a huge difference in terms of the your focus bracketing and stacking in high-res shot mode with respect to stamina and recycle times. Also, this uses now the lithium-ion battery, so of course that's going to lead to much longer flash life in terms of I can get like 600 and some flashes out of this, and again also faster recycle times and the overall stamina for the focus bracketing sets. Now you can get the TT350 in a lithium-ion version. It's called the V350. And that solves a lot of the problems with the focus bracketing stamina, but it does not solve the problem of the overall light output. So you're still going to have to crank the power up on this higher to get the same light output that you'll get out of this. And also, and this is really the main reason I recommend this over even the V350, is this is only $10 more. And you're getting all these new updates to it. In addition to, there's a little LED light here on the front, which can make is really, really helpful in macro photography. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Kodak have been making flashes for a long time, so they're very well made, have great light output and a ton of features. And some of my favorite features on this new flash is, of course, the new beautiful color OLED display here that is touchscreen. And also, the flash head here, instead of having to rotate the flash all the way back around to tilt it up to say if you want to get rear bounce flash, all you have to do is just pull the head back like this, and now you have rear bounce flash, so it saves a lot of time in the field and hassle. We also have the LED light here in the front, which is great as an auto focus assist lamp in low light conditions, which is also typical at events. It's not really bright enough to, say, use as a video light supplement, but it's 2 watts, I believe, is the output. But it's also very, very handy when you're using, say, your AK diffuser or any kind of diffuser in your macro photography to illuminate the subject a little brighter when you are trying to focus and do some bracketing. So I'll demonstrate that. And over here we have a PC sync port. I really appreciate this because I can use this on any camera that has a PC sync port on it, including some of my older film cameras. And then here we have a USB-C port here, and this is strictly for updating the firmware. It does not charge the battery inside, but the battery has been upgraded from the VB20. This is now the VB22, so it has a USB-C port built right into it, so you can charge the battery directly, so you don't have to remember to bring a separate charger. And they do include a charging cable as well as a little wall charger here. And just to note, this cable is also data capable, so you can use the included cable to update the firmware. They've also included a little SOFIN filter here. This also is great for events. and for diffusing the light, and a little stand, as well as a uh, really nice carry case here that'll hold all that stuff together. Now, speaking of firmware updates, this flash has been updated with the latest touchscreen fix, in that people were reporting problems where they were bringing the flash up to their eye and sometimes their forehead, or if they had their camera sitting down on their chest, the settings would change on the screen. And the way you used to lock the screen is, you would just kind of swipe down and then hit the lock icon here, and now the screen is locked. And to unlock it, all you had to do is touch and hold the screen for 2 seconds, and it would unlock. But then again, people are still having problems because a lot of times you do hold the camera up to your eye for more than 2 seconds, and it would unlock the screen inadvertently. So now to unlock the screen, you actually have to push and hold the set button here to unlock the screen for 2 seconds. So you don't have to worry about updating the firmware right away to apply that fix. It comes out of the box ready to go. I just want to give you a quick tip on the modeling lamp here. I use it a lot for my close-up and macro photography. It works great as an autofocus assist lamp because a lot of times I'm out in the dawn and early morning. And also it works great when you're using a diffuser. So a lot of times I'll have my diffuser on like this, and then I'll just turn the modeling lamp on like this. And then as you can see, it illuminates the area very, very nicely. So it makes it very easy to autofocus and also to see your subject on the back of the screen because, again, a lot of times it's very dark. All right, now let's talk about how this flash performs with the computational modes in the camera. And I have the OM1 here, but it's going to be similar across all the different cameras that have these features. So we'll start with high-res shot mode. And we'll go into the computational menu here and turn high-res shot mode on. And we have two choices here. We have tripod mode and we have handheld mode. Now for handheld mode, the camera actually disables the flash, so you cannot use flash with handheld high-res shot mode. So we have to use tripod mode. And then in tripod mode, we have some more options here. We can select the resolution and file format like RAW plus JPEG. I like to set the wait time for the initial shot to go at 4 seconds. And then charge time, you can actually leave this set to 0 because the flash communicates with the camera to let it know if it needs to recycle. So, in high-res shot mode, it'll take like 8 shots. And if like by the 4th shot, the flash, it runs out of juice and it has to recycle, it'll pause that high-res sequence, wait for the flash to recycle, and then when it's ready, it'll fire the next 4 shots, for example. Now, what I found was that the flash recycles very quickly. Even at full power, it's like 1.5 seconds. But typically, when you're using high-res shot mode in product photography, you're going to be at a much lower power setting, and you don't have to worry about recycle times. So the high-res shot mode sequence is very, very quick. I mean, like 1 or 2 seconds at most, typically. Now, a couple other caveats here is that high-res shot mode does not work in TTL mode. So you have to use the flash in manual mode. So we'll set that to manual mode. I'll set the power to say 1/16. And then I also recommend you shoot in full manual mode so that you get the proper exposure, or you can set the proper exposure before the high-res shot mode begins. So put the camera into manual mode, set your shutter speed to say 1/100th of a second, which is the maximum sync speed for flash in electronic shutter. And then, set the aperture that you need. And then I also recommend that you fix the ISO. Do not use auto ISO in full manual mode. So take a couple test shots, like not in high-res shot mode, to see if these exposure settings are correct, and then activate the high-res shot mode with those settings. All right, now let's talk about in-camera focus stacking, because it's very similar to high-res shot mode in that it takes multiple images, then stacks them together to create the final image. So we'll turn focus stacking on, and then we can set the number of shots up to 15, and then the charge time, just as before, you can leave that to 0. And then when it comes to exposure and everything, same thing. You have to set the flash into manual mode. It does not work in TTL. And then your max sync speed is still 1/100th of a second. Then you'll set your aperture to whatever that needs to be. Take a couple test shots before you turn focus stacking on, get the exposure right, and then activate the in-camera focus stacking. And then finally, for focus bracketing, let's go into that menu there. We can turn focus bracketing on. The key difference here is we can set up to 999 shots, and then we can set up our focus differential, and then the charge time, again, we can leave at 0. The difference being is that it doesn't do any in-camera computational features. It just simply racks the focus up to 999 shots. So let's talk about the limits and capacity of the flash. So the way I like to think of it is, what is the stamina of the flash for these computational features? And Logically speaking, if we set the flash power to 1/8, we should be able to get 8 rapid-fire successions of the flash without it slowing down for recycling. And that was pretty much the case. In fact, it actually performed much better than that. So let's start with high-res shot mode. Now for high-res shot mode, I think it takes like 8 shots to compile the image. And for the most part, that's what I got. I set the flash power to 1/8, and I got 8 rapid-fire successions, and then it compiled the images to create the high-res shot mode. Worked perfectly fine. There was one or two occasions where the flash did pause for a split second in the middle of that sequence, but I think it's safe to say you can set the flash power to as high as 1/8 and not have any interruptions in the sequence for high-res shot mode. Now for in-camera focus stacking, where you can set as many as 15 images to be stacked, uh, logically I set the power to 1/16 power, and again I had no issues. I was able to fire 15 shots off without any interruption for recycling. Works perfectly fine. Now, when I set it to 1/8 power, I actually got 8 shots rapid fire. There was a slight pause, and then it actually took another 8 shots without any recycling issues. So it's very, very good performance. I would say you could even use 1/8 power for focus stacking, but to be safe, just use 1/16 power if you want the fastest possible sequence. Now let's talk about focus bracketing, because you can set focus bracketing up to 999 shots, and I did test for that, and the results were very interesting. So I started out with the standard 1/8 power, and we got what I expected. We did 8 shots. There was a little bit of a pause. We did 8 more shots, another little bit of a pause, then 8 and 8 and 8, and it did that up to about 65 frames. When I hit about 65 frames, the flash slowed down quite a bit, down to say 1 or 2 frames per second. My speed up to that point was about 7.5 frames per second, and then when I got to the 65th frame, the flash slowed down to about 1 or 2 frames per second. And I believe that was due to overheating. So the flash has some kind of heat management built in, which is great, but that was kind of the limit at 1/8 power. Now, at 1/16 power, I was a little surprised because I was able to get 65 consecutive shots at the roughly 7.5 frames per second before it started to slow down, which again I assume is due to the overheat management. Now, at 1/16 power got really interesting because I was able to get 600 consecutive shots, thereabout, without interruption before it started to slow down back to its 1 or 2 frames per second. And that was not due to overheating in this case. It was due to the buffer ran out on the camera, because my OM1 Mark I has about a 94 frame buffer, but somehow it made it to 600 shots without interruption. And then right there, I noticed the buffer hit 0. And the flash remained slow from that point forward up until we got to the 999 shot. But I don't think it had to slow down because of heat management or recycling. I think it was primarily because the buffer ran out and the camera just naturally slowed down anyway, and the flash was able to easily keep up with that. Now, there's a lot of variables that are going to affect the performance of the flash. So, first of all, let me tell you that I was shooting in JPEG only to get these numbers. So that kind of explains why I was able to go up to about 600 frames without really hitting the buffer. However, I retested it with RAW plus JPEG, and lo and behold, I hit about 120 frames before I hit the buffer limit, and then the camera started to slow down. And I say camera, not flash, because the flash clearly can go 600 frames, but the camera slowed down right at about 120 frames. The second thing is that I was using a fully charged battery, and that's how I got these numbers. So I retested it with the battery, I'm guessing at about 50%, and my numbers declined. I was not getting the the speed out of the flash, and the recycle times were the same, and they reduced almost in a linear way. I was getting like 33 frames before I got a pause. Then I got up to 74 frames before I got a pause. And then when I hit the 110th frame, I got a pause, and I was also hitting the buffer limit. So at about 50% power, the flash will pause more often, but it still performs very well. And then one final factor I noticed, and I'm telling you these now because these are very difficult to measure, but uh, we're at that time of year where the temperature swings are quite a bit, so ambient temperatures seem to have an effect on the heat management side of the flash. I noticed on warmer days that I was not getting quite as deep into my focus bracketing before I started getting the camera slowing down or the flash slowing down due to the heat management. And that makes sense. So what I'm saying is there could be some other variables here that I didn't test for that may affect the performance of the flash and or camera. So just keep that in mind. So overall, my opinion hasn't changed about this flash since I reviewed it for the Sony cameras. If anything, I'm even more impressed by what it can do for us in our Olympus and OM system cameras, and I can highly recommend it. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.